Welcome everyone to week 6 of the Sprout Quilt Challenge 2025. This is our last block for the challenge before we start doing our layouts next week. This block was designed by Christina at CMarie Quilts, wonderful quilt pattern designer and tech editor. This block was really fun to do, and the instructions for doing the Flying Geese was so much fun. So you want to stay tuned for that. But before we get stitching, I want to thank our generous sponsors. Of course, wonderful specialty thread for sponsoring our whole challenge. And our weekly sponsors this week are So Simply Meg has donated a fat quarter bundle, and Lori from Soul Bloom Quilting Designs has donated $50 gift card towards long arm quilting. So now we can start stitching. So our second block for week 5 is the Crystal Star block designed by Christina at CMarie Quilts. Wonderful quilt designer, and I'm really excited to try this block. I have never done this block before. I'm a big fan of half square triangles and flying geese, so this is right up my alley. We have all of our pieces cut out here ahead of time, and we're going to start with the center of our block, which the theme in my layout is to have the paprika in the center. And we're going to start by attaching these triangles at the top and the bottom, right sides together, 1/4 inch seam allowance, and we're going to press and then attach the 2 side triangles. Now that we have our triangles sewn on to our square, we have a square and a square, and I am going to go ahead and trim off these dog ears just to keep the block tidy. You could use a rotary cutter if you want to. So that's all tidy. And now we're going to take our large sky blue piece, and we need to draw a diagonal line from corner to corner on our indigo pieces, and we have 4 of these. And this is going to create our flying geese. This block is going to go together very quickly. You need to see it in a whole quilt design for sure. So there we have those. So we're going to start out with the first 2. And what we're going to do is we're going to place them in the corner of this larger block or square. And we're going to sew on either side of this drawn line, just like we would if we were doing a half square triangle. So 1/4 inch from the drawn line on both sides. And then we're going to cut on the drawn line when we're done stitching. Now that we have our 2 indigo squares sewn on both sides of the drawn line, it's now time to cut these apart. So lining up your diagonal corners, like so. And we're going to press our indigo squares like so on both pieces. Now that we have our indigo triangles pressed, we can now add our final 2 indigo pieces And we're going to sew a 1/4 of an inch from the drawn line, and notice the orientation of the drawn line is in the center of the 2 squares, and then we'll cut on that drawn line when we're done. Now we have those all stitched on either side of the drawn line. It's time to cut. And now we can press our second square out on our 4 pieces. We'll have 4 flying geese. That was a great way to do it. So we want to square up our flying geese to 3 by 5.5. So I'm measuring across and putting the 2 3/4 right here where the point is. And I want to preserve as much as possible of the seam allowance here so that we get a nice crisp point when we sew these blocks together. Flip it over. So we're at 5.5 now. We're on the 3-inch mark. And there you have it, a really nice flying geese. So I'm going to do this on the remaining 3. So now we have our 4 flying geese units done, our center unit done, and now it's time to do some half square triangles. So we'll draw a diagonal line from corner to corner of the sky blue, and we will sew right sides together with our off-white, and we'll be sewing on a 1/4 of an inch away from the drawn line. Pretty typical for a half square triangle. There's something so satisfying about squaring up half square triangles. I know they can be a little bit tedious, but I really enjoy them, and I love scraping the scraps away after I've trimmed them. One left to do. And if you have a 45-degree mark on your ruler, most of them have it. This is a really great alignment mark on your ruler to get these really, really perfect points on your triangles. After we get done cutting this one, I think we'll get to start constructing our block. So we have 4 half square triangles now. And the way this is going to go is we have a flying geese, a square triangle, a half square triangle. We have our center square and a square, a flying geese at the top and the bottom, and a repeat of row 1 here. What a fun block so far. So we'll sew our rows 1, 2, and 3 together, and then we'll just have 2 seams and we'll be done. So we have our rows all sewn together, and now it's time to finish our block. So we'll go right sides together with the flying geese and their square in the square. We'll match up those points, and remember to stitch just on the outside of your points, and then our block will be done. So now that our crystal star block is all done, designed by Christina at CMarie Quilts, I have to say this went together really easily, and I'm really thrilled with the results. Now that we have all of our blocks completed, I get to put together the layout that I designed. So excited to move on to that part of it. And look at the back, few little threads to clip, but everything's pressed down really nicely and the seams are nested and the points are nice. So if you like this video, of course, as always, a thumbs up is helpful. I'd love to hear what you think in the comments. And if you'd like to see more of this content, subscribe to my channel. Until we meet again, happy stitching.